just to try to get in the shot that will finish things in.
Oh, the uppercut.
What an uppercut by Douglas, and down goes Tyson.
29 years ago, a battle took place in Tokyo, and the results shocked the world.
It's over. It's over.
Mike Tyson has been knocked out.
Unbelievable.
James "Buster" Douglas made perhaps the biggest upset in boxing history by knocking out Iron Mike Tyson. At that time, Mike was absolutely killing everyone. He was controlled by rage. He began his career at the age of 18 and immediately destroyed his rivals in the ring. For a year and a half, Mike fought 27 bouts and won every time. A crazy pace. Sometimes the interval between his fights was just a week. Mike went into the ring and smashed everyone. In 1986, he won his first league title, knocking out Trevor Burback in 2 rounds. Mike became the youngest champion in the history of heavyweight boxing. On the day of the battle, he was 20 years, 145 days old. This achievement has not been surpassed so far.
Well, he knows full well there is a monster lurking somewhere out there in the boxing ring. And Tyson being the youngest heavyweight. But my son Ray, he's 13 today. Happy birthday, son. I'll be home tomorrow.
For 2.5 years, Tyson beat his rivals and became the absolute world champion in the heavyweight division, collecting the WBA, IBF, WBC, and the Ring belts. After completing his career, the boxer vividly described himself as a young man.
I was beating guys off of just pure brute strength and intimidation. Most guys were just pretty much intimidated. They lost the fight before they even got hit, most guys.
In the early 90s, Tyson was supposed to meet the former champion in the first heavyweight division and the first contender for his titles, Evander Holyfield. The fight was planned for a long time, but Holyfield, after defeating Jamaican Alex Stewart, asked for time to rest and prepare for the main duel of his life. Tyson's team did not want to stand idle. Mike held his last defense in July of 1989 and sat idle.
Tell us what you think, who is next.
Well, I'm just taking it one step at a time. I'll fight anybody, you know what I mean? I don't discriminate from anybody. I'm the best fighter in the world, and there's no man that can beat me.
Does this mean that Holyfield is or is not your next opponent?
Well, he's in my future, but I don't think he's in my immediate future. But come on, Holyfield, don't matter. That's kids' play.
What about Douglas, who looked a little better, if not great, in another preliminary? He's been mentioned as a possible opponent.
I take all comers. I don't duck any man.
Can we assume that Michael Dokes is one of the prospects?
All comers. Come one, come all, because nobody can get close to me. They're not even close. I'm the best fighter in the world.
In his interview with Larry Merchant, Mike acknowledged that you are not likely to be next on his list. He did not say for sure whether he would fight Jose Ribalta or Buster Douglas or Michael Dokes or any of the other names which are being bandied about, but he seemed to make it pretty clear that he's not going to fight you next. Are you getting impatient?
No, I'm not getting impatient. My time is coming, and I will be ready when my time comes.
That is why Tyson's promoter Don King suggested that the fighter carry out an intermediate defense and practice against Buster Douglas before the big battle. The Japanese paid $6 million to the major boxing organizations to make Tyson's next defense take place in Tokyo. How much Japanese money fell into King's pocket is still unknown, but we are talking about 7-digit numbers. Mike agreed he didn't care who he beat. Douglas was not the top. He had been knocked out 3 times. He was 29 years old. His father, William "Dynamite" Douglas, successfully boxed with a record of 41 wins, 16 losses, but was never a champion. Before the fight with Tyson, Buster was quoted as an average heavyweight. 36 fights, 4 defeats, 3 by KO, and only 1 title fight. In 1987, when Iron Mike's ascent was just beginning, Douglas met the IBF champion Tony Tucker and lost by TKO in the 10th round. Buster went on to a series of 6 victories in a row, incidentally defeating ex-champion Burback and future champion Oliver McCall. These 2 major victories gave Douglas another title fight against the monster Tyson. But everyone was sure Buster would be a light snack for Mike. Before the fight, the applicant ranked at number 7. in the heavyweight rating of the ring, so no one took him seriously.
Well, in the important game of expectations, this fight is over before it begins or soon thereafter. You have to remember that just nobody believes anybody can compete with Mike Tyson. In fact, Ed Schuyler of the Associated Press, when he arrived in Tokyo, was asked by a customs official what he was doing here. He said he was here to cover the Tyson-Douglas fight. How long do you expect to work? The customs official asked. Oh, he said, about 90 seconds.
Both boxers had problems before the fight. In late 1988, Mike broke up with manager Bill Clayton and coach Kevin Rooney. Don King fought with Mike's manager for a long time, but the parting with Rooney seriously affected Tyson's physics and technology. Kevin played an important role in honing his champion style and took on the role of mentor after the death of Cus D'Amato. After Rooney left, Mike won 2 fights, but in the fight with Douglas, the coach was very lacking in Mike's corner. In February of 1989, Tyson took another blow. The divorce proceedings began with his first wife, Robin Givens. The marriage had lasted exactly a year. Givens was afraid of her husband's manic bursts. The boxer claimed that the actress was cheating on him. Mike professed that the breakup didn't bother him, but he began to behave differently. Tyson often skipped training. There were even rumors that he was knocked down a couple of times during sparring before the fight with Douglas.
In a workout in Tokyo, Mike was sparring with Greg Page, and he got hit and went down. He looked at me when he went down. I said, "Get up." And he got up and came over like this, and I wiped his gloves off, and I told him to go back in there. I had sat down one night, and I talked to Mike. I told him, "You're not Superman, and the best that I know about this game, the things you've been doing and how you've been doing it, you're headed for a butt whooping."
I can't say that I scored for training, but between the fights, I really allowed myself a lot. There were girls, drugs, everything. But I went to the hall in front of Douglas. I remember that for sure. At that moment, I was just training and sleeping with the girls. This did not end even when we flew to Japan. Did I check out Buster? Of course not. I have not seen any of his fights, said Mike.
Still in great shape, and there's nowhere I could lose.
In terms of sports psychology and so on, do you have a method? None at all?
It's fight. Nothing's better. You can have a psychiatrist, you can have whatever. No, you can't fight.
Douglas, too, had a difficult time. In Buster's life, there were 3 beloved women: his mother Lula, wife Bertha, and mistress Doris. At one point, he lost all of them. A month before the fight, his spouse packed up and left home. Doris, who gave the boxer a son, was in the hospital with leukemia and struggling with all her strength. And 3 weeks before the fight with Tyson, Buster's mother died. Buster's manager suggested he give up the Japanese fight. Moreover, Lula had asked him not to go into the ring with this rabid beast, but the boxer decided to fight.
He told me that she would want him to go on. He was very close to his mom. Before she had passed, she come to his house, and she was real worried about him fighting Mike Tyson because she had heard what an animal he was. And he goes, "No, I'm okay. I'm going to beat him." She had went and told one of her girlfriends, "Oh, Buster's going to beat Mike Tyson," you know. So that really gave him confidence too.
Douglas's problems did not end there. The day before entering the ring, the athlete caught a cold, caused by perhaps the sharp change in climate. His temperature rose to 102 degrees or 38 Celsius. Buster took antibiotics day and night, but refused to give up. Nobody believed in Douglas. Even Buster's father said it would not be easy. Bookmakers took bets on his victory, 42-1. Experts unanimously claimed that Tyson would destroy the applicant.
The story of his mother's death had been communicated to us, but we didn't know at that moment that it had somehow galvanized him. He was, for this one big occasion, going to be the fighter of his dreams.
We covered that fight almost as an afterthought, and we got there late in the week, and Tyson was sort of off limits or jetting around, I don't know which. At that point, the only person available was Douglas, because who wanted to talk to Douglas?
Fear was a lot of Tyson's weaponry in the past. when he was at his greatness. The fighters came in almost frozen, almost the prey of a cobra. But Buster Douglas, by his mother just dying, he had no fear. What do I care? That just happened to be the perfect timing that he had to fight a dissipating Tyson, whose mind is going everywhere, and a lot of it's following Robin Gibbons' retreating figure.
Mike was not himself when he entered the ring. It felt that his thoughts were not in the Tokyo Dome at that moment. Buster, on the contrary, came out extremely charged. Family problems only tempered him. He wanted revenge. In the eyes of Tyson's previous rivals, you could see the fear. Buster didn't have it. From the first rounds, he crushed his opponent with jabs, worked competently at a distance, using his advantage in the reach of his arms and span of his hands, and quietly blocked himself from the attacks of Iron Mike.
Pretty good job here.
Another right hand lead by Douglas.
Films, because he takes a move, he steps to his right, give a little angle.
Douglas giving as good as he gets inside right there. He outlanded Tyson by punch stat comp.
Tyson looked straight forward. He had only one blow left in his arsenal. His famous technique with diving and slopes was gone. Buster competently fenced with jabs, powerfully and accurately.
Extremely close to his mother. Right hand by Douglas right on Tyson's chin. Douglas again with a left and a right. Now Tyson lands a right hand and backs Buster up, but here he comes.
The Michael response, Mike is dropping his hands.
And there, of course, is Evander Holyfield, who has a guarantee of $12 million to fight Mike Tyson in June. And right now, that $12 million isn't in the bank.
Which Tyson turned things around against Frank Bruno. Right hand by Douglas lands again.
There's a right hand again. This one happens every time.
Another right hand, and now Tyson seems to be one.
Douglas chose the right moments to include a strong right strike. Largely thanks to these jabs, Douglas gained his main strategic advantage in the 5th round. Tyson's left eye was swollen shut. It was soon apparent that Tyson had another problem. His corner was simply not ready for the fight. Coach Aaron Snowell failed to make sure they had the proper equipment, such as an end swell and ice in the case of cuts. They tried to cure Mike's facial injuries with a rubber glove filled with ice water. After the fight, trainer Teddy Atlas issued the famous phrase, "Dumb mediocrity gathered in Tyson's corner." They couldn't even train a fish to swim. Mike was missing Kevin Rooney. He was missed during preparation for the fight. Kevin had the ability to counsel his champion at just the right moment. During the battles, Rooney read the opponents and made important suggestions to Tyson, and the course of the fights changed. Mike had certain problems in the battle against Tucker for the title of absolute champion, but Rooney found a way out and the right words to guide them to victory. When Tony shocked Tyson in the 1st round, the coach reassured Mike and brought him to his senses during the minute break. In the middle of the same fight, Tyson injured his right hand and went on to box exclusively with jabs for 5 rounds. It was Rooney who changed tactics.
You see how easily Douglas is dominating the action inside.
And Tyson is holding on.
Tyson lost strength but still managed to send his opponent to a knockdown. At the end of the 8th round, the champion struck with a crown uppercut. Referee Octavio Meran counted very slowly, and when he counted 9, Buster got up just before the gong sounded.
See what Mike can do to finish, and the bell ends to save Buster Douglas at the end of round 8.
Well, Tyson needed something like that desperately, and like a real champion, he came through with it.
Left hand lands by Tyson.
After 2 more rounds, the world witnessed what was perhaps the biggest upset in boxing history.
With a left and a right. Shades of Ray Leonard against Tommy Hearns. Douglas coming back with a left and right. Tyson is wobbling. Tyson needs the ropes for support. Douglas wailing away. Without the ropes, Mike would have gone down.
And Mike Tyson is hurt, His eye is closing, and he is behind in this fight.
It was like a movie. Douglas unleashed an uppercut. The exhausted Tyson was shocked. Douglas caught up with Mike's head and pounded him with a combination of 4 strokes. Tyson falls, kneels down, and tries to put the mouthpiece in his mouth. The referee counted to 10, with Tyson barely able to get to his feet. Mehran stopped the fight and solidified the biggest upset in boxing history. When the fight ended, the opinions of the judges showed serious differences in opinion. The American Larry Rosadilla gave the victory to Douglas, 88-83. The Japanese Ken Morita, 87-86, in favor of Tyson. And Masakazu Uchida showed a tie, 86-86. If Tyson had reached the final gong, the match could have ended in a draw or even his victory. This victory is for my mom, for the main woman in my life. Without her, I would not have been. May God protect her in the next world, said Buster after the battle.
Why did it happen, James?
Because I wanted it.
Why? Why did you win this fight that nobody on the planet gave you?
His mother.
In what way?
God bless her heart.
Yeah. Let him go, Larry.
After he got knocked down, I said, you can't let him beat.
But Douglas couldn't really enjoy his victory. Tyson's promoter Don King appealed to the referee. King believed that Mehran was too slow during Buster's 8th round knockdown, stretching it to as much as 13 seconds. While the IBF immediately recognized Douglas's victory as legitimate, the WBC and WBA joined them 4 days later. According to independent reports, the referee during the countdown focuses not on time, but on the boxer's condition. For this Japanese battle, Buster received $1.3 million. Tyson's fee was $6 million, but fans around the world doubted the honesty of the fight. Many thought that Mike received a better fee for the defeat than he would get for a rematch.
Evander Holyfield, #1 contender in the eyes of all 3 governing bodies, and a man who had a contract for a guaranteed $11 million to fight Mike Tyson on June 18. Evander, your reaction to what you just saw?
Well, it was a great fight on Douglas' part. He went out and fought his fight and fought a very smart fight, and he proved that he wanted to be the champion.
The toughest guys are the ones that come back. You know what I mean? It's just nothing. I lost before. I've been knocked out before as an amateur. You know what I mean? It's just how you take it psychologically. You know what I mean? I'm pretty much of a decent character, and I can handle it.
Douglas and Tyson never met again in the ring. Their careers went on different paths. At the end of 1990, Buster lost all his titles, losing by knockout in the 3rd round to Holyfield. Douglas was completely unprepared for that defense. He entered the ring 15 pounds heavier than he had in the fight with Mike. Larry Merchant looked at the champion with surprise. Look at his stomach. Is this the same guy who knocked down Tyson? Immediately after the fight, Buster ended his career. Even before that meeting with Holyfield, King was offering Douglas $10 million for a rematch with Tyson. Buster refused, and according to various estimates, received between $17 and $25 million for his fight against Holyfield. In the years following, Douglas lived on his winnings and ate a lot. A few years later, the boxer weighed 400 pounds and at one point fell into a diabetic coma. After recovery, Buster resumed his career. By this time, it was 1996. The money he had received for fighting Tyson and Holyfield had flown away. Douglas won 8 more fights against little-known rivals, unsuccessfully tried to organize a bout with Roy Jones, lost in 3 minutes by knockout to Lou Savarese, and finally retired in 1999. Now, Douglas is doing business in Ohio, having opened a hotel and a couple of businesses. Tyson returned to the ring 4 months after losing to Buster, and in 3 minutes he dealt with Henry Tillman. Iron Mike fought for another year, with 3 wins, and went to jail for 3 years for raping 18-year-old model Desiree Washington. In 1995, Mike returned to the ring, became the champion again, but lost the title once more after a duel with Holyfield. There was a controversial ear bite, several victories, a crushing knockout from Lennox Lewis, then retirement and bankruptcy. Today, Mike has started his own marijuana plantation and is living well. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. And stay tuned for new episodes about the legends of the past.